Hey guys, welcome to episode 32 of Operation PlayStation, powered by Audio Technica. I'm one of your hosts, Dash, along with my co-host, Mr. Paul James. What's going on, Padge?
You know how they say once you go black, you can never go back?
Yeah.
Look at this beautiful specimen. Yeah, and context is a really important thing.
Damn.
Look at this beautiful beast.
It looks good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had it. I think I had it for the last episode, but it wasn't. I don't think I'd stuck the plates on. I've only done it recently, and just look at this beautiful thing.
It really does look nice. Like, honestly, I haven't seen the plates in force yet, so like this is really nice to actually see it.
Yeah. No, it comes up real well. Obviously, you don't have the PlayStation logo on it because it's not an official PlayStation branded product, and that would get them pinged. But yeah, everything else is exactly the same. And it just kind of slots in exactly as the normal plates do. It looks great.
Very sexy.
Very much enjoying it.
As
I notice that there's one that I haven't slotted in properly. Just looking at it, but whatever. I can fix that later.
Brand?
These were the Osplay. Oh shit!
Osplay, yeah.
I think that's what it was. They've been stuck on their way from China for ages, so they probably got caught up in the Suez at some point.
Oh, no, fair enough.
No, it was a little bit before the canal issue, but yeah, it's good to just throw shade at that.
No, fantastic. Well, that's good news at least. Guys, if you didn't know, this is Operation PlayStation, Gamer.com's dedicated PlayStation podcast where we dive deep and dirty and discover what the latest and greatest PlayStation have to offer, including gaming that's happening this year across PlayStation
2021 gaming.
And Xbox, apparently. If you like what you hear, make sure you follow us over on Anchor, iTunes and Spotify. Give us those cheeky 5-star ratings. They surely help us out. And also catch the VOD over on dashgamer.com and on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that bell, give us a like, leave us a follow. Surely helps us out. For the time being, we're still on SoundCloud, but we are preparing to make our move over to Anchor real soon. So that's going to be interesting when we do. We are on Anchor as well at the moment. So when posts on SoundCloud, it also goes to Anchor. But our home will be on Anchor real soon. So if you are following us over on SoundCloud, make sure that you jump over to anchor.fm/Operation PlayStation and follow us there too. Paul, give us your housekeeping.
Not a hell of a lot because, as I think I mentioned last time we did an episode, my capture card's been out of action for a little while. I finally got myself a temporary backup thanks to Matt O'Phil of Patched Fame. He sent me his Elgato just to use in the short term, but I'm only now just starting to get cracking with everything. So nice. The video space has been a little bit quiet. I've done a few videos based on mobile titles recently. Yeah. Like Crash on the Run and some of the Apple Arcade stuff that's popped up recently. So there'll be some player stuff going up that over the coming days. But Dev Diary got to keep an eye out for. The most recent guest there, Wayne Kubiak, who worked on a whole host of different games like Hobroxia 2. He's worked on The Binding of Isaac and several other really cool titles over the journey. So go check that one out. New episode is going live on Thursday featuring Lissy Kane. Nice. So local talent works with League of Geeks, done some really cool stuff. We had a good chat about Siobhan Reddy because she went over there did an apprenticeship of sorts with Siobhan and Media Molecule for a little while there, so she was able to share some really great insight into that wonderful mind, which is fantastic timing given everything that went on with Siobhan recently. But really, really cool episode, so go check that one out on Thursday. And then in terms of the written stuff, I've only done one thing, and that was what we were kind of promoting last time was imminent, the Monster Hunter Rise review. Yeah. You can go check that out. Thanks to Nintendo Australia for providing me a code. Fantastic. For dashgamer.com, thanks to the confolk over at EA Australia, I got to sit down with Mr. Ryan Betson and go through It Takes Two. Our full written review is now live on the website, along with some coverage that we did on the Dash Gamer podcast from last week. And the Dash Gamer podcast is now live, episode 25 with Mr. Ryan Betson. We discuss a lot of things, including It Takes Two and other things as well that led up to quite an interesting event that took place that we're going to get to in shortly. Also, Infamous Second Son Revisited, an opinion piece that I wrote up during the week, which also kind of leads me to this beauty right here that myself and Paul are about to take a squig out of. Look at this. You dirty thief.
So I got myself...
Had this for 12 months.
12
Jumping
months?
on the bandwagon.
Look, you know what? You know how I am. But the reason I got this as well was I played Infamous First Light after I played Second Son, and apparently I was only one trophy away from platinum. I got myself a platinum, so cheers, Paul.
No, you don't do trophies, so I'm not going to give you the pleasure.
Stuff, yeah. I don't like trophies anyway. But I still went after it. because I thought that it was worth it. Also, Monster Hunter Rise review, thanks to the kind folk over at Nintendo who provided the review code for that. The review itself is written by a freelancer called, by the name of Ruby Rollins, so make sure you guys check that out. Xbox wireless headset review, thanks to the kind folk over at Xbox who provided that. Dash Game Podcast once again. Doom Eternal, The Ancient Gods Part 2 review, thanks to the kind folk over at Bethesda who provided the review code. And later on in the week, we will have our Outriders review, thanks to the kind folk over at Bandai Namco. All right, Padge, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into the news. All right, Padge, the first bit of news comes by way of Matt TM Kim over at IGN, who says PlayStation Store shutdown dates for PS3, PS Vita, and PSP officially announced. You'll still be able to redeem your games. He goes on, Sony has confirmed that it will be shutting down the PlayStation Store for PlayStation 3 and PSP on July 2nd, 2021, and the PSN Store for the Vita on August 27, 2021. This is according to an email sent out to PlayStation customers, including IGN staffers. According to a PlayStation support blog, customers will still be able to re-download and play previously purchased games and video, and still redeem games and PlayStation Plus vouchers. However, new PS3, Vita, and PSP purchases will cease, and players can no longer make in-game purchases or redeem wallet funds on PS3, Vita, or PSP once the store closes. Okay, so I'll begin this by saying, from what I'm seeing here, there is an investment issue more than anything. And the reason I say that is because they're not necessarily shutting down servers that host these games. If anything, they're keeping them live, but they're not maintaining them. Essentially what happens is they flick a switch and it's an automated thing where if people who have already purchased these titles want to download them to their respective devices, may oh geez, there's a ghost again.
Haven't seen you in a while.
May reacquire reacquire, I should say, may re-download these titles that they've acquired previously. But you can't, if you're a hopeful user and wanted to purchase these games, you can't.
Yep.
So, what are your thoughts on this?
It's bullshit.
Go on.
I mean, look, it's mostly just representative of the fact that PlayStation can't get its shit together in the backwards compatibility space. Maybe we're close because there was that patent, and I'm going to talk about this in more detail later in the show, showing my hand for later in the show. Yeah, but there was that patent that suggested that maybe they'd worked out some degree of backwards compatibility because they were being able to retroactively add trophies into old games. So that would suggest anything that's PS3 before trophies were a thing. Say Resistance Fall of Man, for example, or earlier than that, PS1 and PS2 titles. I hate the PS Vita one the most. The PS3, I don't like it, but I get it. The PSP, they'd already kind of done that. They'd already taken half a step towards that in 2016, I think it was, when they first started to close things down. The Vita thing gives me the shits because, firstly, obviously, it's the most recent of all those systems, but also there were still developers working on games for the platform, and maybe it would have been an easier pill for them and everyone else to swallow had they been informed, given some heads up.
Yeah,
but they weren't. It sounds like there was one studio, the team that developed, because I believe it's already available on other platforms, Scourgebringer, which has been promoting itself for a little while as the last Vita game, and I don't think anyone gave it too much thought until we reported on the Gamer's article last episode, and now that the actual confirmed dates are out there, everyone's going, shit, they were tipped off by PlayStation along the way, used as some promotional tool, but all these other developers are left out in the wind, and that really gives me the shits because it's just reflective of kind of old Sony, the old arrogant Sony that just, we do what we want when we want. I'm just going to put the blame square at Jim Ryan's feet again because he's an arsehole.
Look,
but he did say, and I mean, there's just one, I guess, him being at the top of the tree and these sort of comments that he made at the Gran Turismo event. Did you hear anything about that? There was some Gran Turismo 7 event. It must have been a behind closed doors sort of preview.
Yeah, I didn't hear about this.
I didn't really hear much about it either until it kind of got presented to me. Was that there was some sort of hands-on or maybe hands-off sort of preview, and they had a whole bunch of demo booths there with past Gran Turismo games there as well. And he commented in an interview after the fact that I looked at those and I thought, who would ever want to play these?
Look, here's the issue.
And I can appreciate it through one lens that, GT7 is presumably going to be the biggest and best title they've ever done in the franchise, and it, technologically can't get those other titles won't hold a candle to it. But that's unbelievably disrespectful to the people who made the game back in the day, to those who love the game now, and it just maybe is representative of a general school of thought from him and presumably those underneath him. And really grinds my gears.
You hate the bloke like I hate Lorne Lanning. Look, here's the thing.
But at least mine's justified.
Yeah, right. Mine's justified too. Here's how I look at it. The PSP. I can understand why it's closed. I just pulled up a video just now. The store itself is actually closed on the PlayStation Portable. The only way to access it is actually to go to the web browser and go to store.playstation.com.
But that got turned off. That got turned off a while ago.
And now
it was PS3 and Vita was the only way you could actually access PSP games.
Correct. So now that in itself, shutting that down, you're not able to, and PS4, by the way, you can still purchase it through PS4, but they're actually taking that away in the next update. So now, in that, taking it away like that simply is going to, I don't know what their goal is or why they're trying to stifle or keep people away from purchasing these titles on these platforms. It's confounding. Like, it's confusing why PlayStation are basically putting the shackles on these platforms. It's especially the Vita. You've got Colin Moriarty's company. I can't remember what it was. Lilimo, who came out and put out a statement last week saying we had to
Barry
cancel,
Johnson.
Yeah, we had to cancel development on Habroxia. Or was it Habroxia?
No. It's a code-named title. I can't say any more than that.
Yeah. A sequel to apparently a title that they were working on. No, it wasn't that. Okay, fair enough. No. It was a code name. Here's Mystery
And that much I am allowed to say because Colin said it in a recent podcast.
Fair enough, anyway.
Yeah, it's not a sequel.
Okay,
they are working on sequels.
So it was a game that they were in development, but they cancelled the Vita version of the title. And basically, Habroxia 2 will be their final title on the Vita.
On the Vita, yeah.
And again, it's just, there's a myriad of developers out there who now had to cancel development that they've put in money, time, and effort into. Some, I guess, more than others, but it's just a case now that those games are all cancelled, and it's a wash.
Yeah, let's use the Colin one as an example. They're one of the ones that, of studios that are developing for the Vita. They're probably one of the more fortunate ones because they've got the backing of someone like Colin Moriarty and his Patreon and everything associated with kind of that whole brand. Mm-hmm. So they might lose a few $1,000s or whatever, and obviously some time, but it's not going to blow up the company.
Right.
There's much smaller indie developers there that might have put all their eggs in one basket here potentially, and it blows them up. Mm-hmm. Like Vita might have been their lead platform. Maybe they're planning on putting other platforms as well. But like it's a huge amount of money that's just gone straight down the tube, and that could push some people away completely. There's certainly been a negative backlash from a lot of developers since this reveal, anyway. So I don't know. It's just
it really
the messaging is bullshit.
Well,
and if they had a backup plan, they should have announced it.
I don't know if the messaging is bullshit in a way. I know that they're being...
Or the way they've done it. The way they've delivered
the message. I think the way that they've delivered it has been unclear and kind of ill-timed. If anything, didn't give a warning. There was no warning given to any of these developers who only got developer kits this year. There were apparently development kits sent out this year.
Yeah, Colin, Lilimo bought one in March. Literally a month ago.
How are they handing out development kits and then all of a sudden deciding to shut this down?
One hand is not talking to the other hand, and that's a old school Sony sort of thing, and that's not even an arrogance thing. That's just an incompetence thing in a number of ways.
Well, in that case, it starts at the top.
Yeah,
and Mr. Ryan is to blame.
Yes, and I love blaming him, but no, it's just he's.
I know he's a bit of an arrogant one, Padge.
We're going to refresh this camera. In the meantime, keep going.
He's a bit of an arrogant one. I understand that, Padge. But like I said, there's two sides to this story, and I can understand. And you discussed it this week on Padge, where Damo brought it up to
Padge, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, on Padge. On Padge.
Self-titled show. Padge.
Oh man! By the way, this is zero alcohol, so I'm not drinking. I am technically, but I'm not. So the thing is, you discussed it with Damo and Patch this week, and he said, it has to be. It comes down to money, and it comes down to investment, and it comes down to the dollar that Sony are willing to put into these stores now, and they don't want to continue pumping money into stuff that has no place in modern day in terms of modern gaming, because let's face it, as much as this digital library has its place, they just don't want to appoint staff on a digital market that pretty much serves to tens of people. So
yeah, they're not selling many copies of games on specifically PS3 and PSP, and so like on an accounting side, it makes business sense. But again, there's so many better ways that you could communicate this message to the developers first and foremost, the people who are actually creating for you and have deals with you. And like, sure, we didn't need to know necessarily that soon. Yeah. Of course, the word as soon as the word got to developers, it was always going to leak out to the community. But so be it. You need to look after your creators in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. Paige, let's move on to the next story. This is a big one. This one comes by way of Shannon over at Press Start, who says MLB The Show 21 is launching on Xbox Game Pass, which is huge as it's developed by PlayStation. Let me read that again. MLB The Show 21 is launching on Xbox Game Pass, which is huge as it's developed by PlayStation. What am I reading? How am I seeing this? How's it happening? Let's go on. Shannon goes on to say, it's no secret at this point that Microsoft has been going hard with money to acquire games for Xbox Game Pass. But this is up with their biggest. This is up there with their biggest. In its latest announcement, Xbox announced that MLB The Show 21 will be launching on Xbox Game Pass on day one on April 20th. This might not seem like a big deal here in Australia, but MLB The Show is developed by Sony Studio, Sony San Diego to be exact, and has previously been exclusive to PlayStation consoles. It's a big deal as it's one of the best-selling games in the USA, and this marks the first time that a game developed by a Sony worldwide studio has become available on Xbox Game Pass. And they put out a tweet that says, "Let's play ball." It's coming out on 4/20. Oh my god! Look, we knew that the show was going to be multi-platform, I should say. I would have expected the game to be published on Steam, much like Horizon and Death Stranding has by PlayStation Mobile. The fact that it's coming to Xbox, the fact that it's going to Game Pass, this is something unforeseen. This is something that I would not have expected at all. I know that MLB were forcing PlayStation's hand on this and saying, you want to continue the license, you want to continue development of this game, it has to go multi-platform. But for it to land on their competitor's machine and on their subscription service is huge. It's magnanimous.
It's a big deal, but that in itself still doesn't surprise me either, because if you try and put yourself in the MLB's boots, so not PlayStation, not Xbox, they're looking for any way that they can get their brand out there, and they've been looking for years at how NBA 2K has exploded.
Yeah.
The way EA has consistently had success with FIFA and Madden and all those sorts of things. And they've wondered, well, why are we only shifting 1 million units? Oh, it's because we're contained to one platform and one platform only. So let's bring it to Xbox. Let's bring it, and who knows? That might spread further over the following years. That might become Nintendo and PC and those sorts of things as well.
But that's the thing.
But then from there, then the extra step to that is the Game Pass thing. Okay, how do we want to get this ball rolling as in the best way possible? Let's get it on Xbox Game Pass. Then next year, when MLB The Show 22 rolls along, no, Game Pass it's not day and date.
Well,
now
you don't know that.
No. This is me speculating. This is me trying to make some assumptions on the MLB side.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've now got people on Xbox understand this franchise. They've bought into it, and now next year you are going to have to buy into it. You're going to have to pay the $60-$70 US dollars to actually play this game.
That's a
They've
huge assumption.
they've whet your appetite they've whet your appetite by getting it on Game Pass. Because now let's say they sell another million. Let's just say it's 1-to-1 PlayStation to Xbox sales, which it's not because we understand PlayStation has the bigger audience and it's established like MLB fans will go to PlayStation to play it. But let's suppose it's a 1-to-1 thing here. We'll go, okay, well now all those people, if you want to play it next year, it's still coming to Xbox, but it's not Game Pass day and date. You might roll into Game Pass in a few months, but we want your $70 because there's even more money in it for the MLB. They don't care about PlayStation. They don't care about Xbox. They're fighting it out in the middle ground. It's MLB that's looking at their bottom line and going, how can we maximize our profits? Well, we give them a taste 1 year and then next year we make you pay full bucks. And of course, because they're putting it on Game Pass, that means Microsoft has given them an almighty chunk of money this year anyway. So they're not losing out financially. I think this is a way to make as much profit as possible. And I think it's a very wise move by them. It sucks if you're on the PlayStation side, but I mean,
that's what I was going to bring up.
There's been a lot of very vocal PlayStation fans in recent days, but not many of them are playing MLB. So it's honestly just because there's a little. I mean, I guess I don't like it a little bit myself, but most of it's all just butthurt.
Padge, here's how I see it.
This doesn't mean the Horizon or something's going to come to Xbox.
Well, look,
it's a different scenario.
Well, hold on a second. It's not, okay? I believe that this is being overlooked a little bit in terms of Sony looking at this and saying, what kind of investment could we make from this? Because there would be business. They would be keeping an eye on MLB The Show on Xbox and how well that performs in terms of, well, here's a PlayStation developed title going to Xbox. How well is it going to be received on Xbox? It's going to be received. Well, spoilers. It's going to be received extremely well.
Just as well.
Yeah. This is, in terms of, Greg Miller put it best. This is a great look for Xbox. This is a bad look for PlayStation. And the reason it's a bad look for PlayStation is they don't have the infrastructure like Xbox to pull off a Game Pass at the moment. And because they really kind of are stubborn in that way, and they're very arrogant in that regard, that they believe they don't need a Game Pass to succeed or even need it to be praised.
Oh, look, I like slamming Jim Ryan, but he has said they are working on something in that space.
Okay, fair enough. Are they working? They can be working on it, but then the next day you can turn around and say, no.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So it's one of those things right now where they could easily see it and say, well, Xbox could be an easy distribution service for us to kind of release titles to make some money. And especially if Xbox want to pay us big money for titles, then why would we oppose? That's money. That's money. And then afterwards, you look at that and you look at this Xbox. Like I've got the box art up right now on the screen of MLB The Show. You look at this box art, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. There's a PlayStation logo on this thing, and you think to yourself, okay, this scenario in itself is it's massive, and I think a lot of people are giving it a little bit of they're underrated. They're downplaying this scenario. It's being downplayed mainly because MLB forced the hand of PlayStation. But MLB could have very well just changed something within the industry. This could be the start.
No, just
See,
I can't.
I understand
simply because the key thing here, and I understand what you're trying to drive at, but there's an external party that actually has control over the IP, over the
MLB,
license here that is
but
driving
MLB.
the whole
But
thing.
hold on a second, it could have been as easy as play because if you go back, and I brought this up to Betson last week, as much as Shannon said, MLB The Show is one of America's top-selling titles. If you look, it's not.
No, it sells like 1 million copies. Yeah,
it barely scrapes a million.
Just gets over 1 million, and some of that will obviously be overseas. A very small percentage, but yeah.
Before they stopped developing the title for Vita and other platforms, because I believe they had it on PSP as well.
Yeah, it made it on Vita a couple times.
It scraped 800,000 on the PlayStation 4. Now, you're telling me that every generation they look at and they keep thinking, oh, the MLB license will grow. It actually has dipped every annual release. And as it dips, why would Sony turn around and be like, "Oh man, we gotta cater to what MLB wants, or else they're gonna go sign somewhere else"? Hell, let them go sign to somewhere else. Let them go sign at 2K. But 2K dropped their ass like 10 years ago because they weren't selling any copies. 2K turned around and said, "We're not making an investment here. We need to focus on NBA 2K and everything else that actually sells 28 million copies." Because if 2K could, they would acquire stuff like FIFA. But if they turn around and saw MLB pop up on their desk, they'd be like, "We dumped this years ago because it wasn't selling anything. Why would we want to reacquire this?" And then that makes me
it's a shit boring sport.
But that makes me question again, why is Sony so, why are they so enamored by MLB and wanting to keep this IP around? It's just weird that they would cater to MLB's needs in that circumstance to publish this title on Xbox.
Up until this point, before the MLB 21 stuff's kicked in, it made sense for them to do it because, sure, it's not a massive number of people. It's also probably not a massive investment on their end because annualized sports games, and I don't want to be too disparaging to them, but it's the same game every year with
it's not disparaging.
Mostly cosmetic improvements.
Yeah.
So it's cheap for them to develop.
Yep.
And sure, it's not a massive number of people, but it's 1 million people that are guaranteed to buy your console.
Yeah.
So that's why they've been doing it up until now. And I'd argue it's probably a point where they're in too deep. Now that Xbox is on board, they're going to be too proud to step away from it. They'll happily cop it and they'll plaster their PlayStation logos all over it to make sure that Xbox owners, people who only own an Xbox, see that and are tempted by it. But this is not going to be the beginning, the first trickle of a floodgate that opens.
I don't think it's a floodgate
because at that point, if by some chance we start to see God of War and Horizon and Uncharted, etc., start to actually pop up on Xbox as opposed to PC, there's no longer any point to have a PlayStation.
That's the issue,
and that's the thing, because Sony, the company, overall is propped up by the PlayStation department at the moment. So if there was a reason people stop buying the box, they're in all sorts. So it's never going to get to that point because PlayStation, they need people to go and buy the console. Sure, all the reports are they're selling the console at a loss at the moment. That obviously won't remain the case eventually, but they're selling the console at a loss right now. But you get people in the door, you get them into the environment, the ecosystem, and they'll start buying Uncharted, they'll start buying God of War, they'll start buying Resistance 4.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but no, Ratchet, Spider-Man, like they've got the right combination of established IP and their own and licenses they sign on with, like MLB, like Spider-Man. I can't believe I just bundled MLB and Spider-Man in the same thing, but they are external licenses.
That's right, yeah.
And that's what's kind of drawn people in. And this is not ideal for them because they would have much rather their own advertising draw people across and go, "Hey, you want to play MLB? This is where you have to play it."
Yeah.
But if this is the hand that they've been dealt, if MLB is forcing this upon them, well, then you go, okay, well, let's lean into this and make sure that it is abundantly clear. And you see it in the ads, like you watch the trails on the Xbox thing and you see the PlayStation Studios logo, you see Sony San Diego studio pop up. Like, they're not hiding this fact. Like, you have to acknowledge that this is made by PlayStation.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
think
the best you can do in the situation.
Look, I think it's also Sony kind of flexing the fact that, hey, look, okay, fine, we'll publish it on other platforms, but just letting you guys know that you're not much of a property to us. In terms of wanting to stay exclusive here, so we're more than happy to oblige in that circumstance.
Well, they've got no say in the matter ultimately.
No, well,
they just stop making it full stop. But that's money that they lose.
But that's the thing too. They could have easily said, "Yeah, you know what, we'll do that." Why? Because I think we can make more money that way off this property.
Oh, they can. I mean, they'll still take, because they're the developers. They will take and publisher. They will take a cut of every sale. That's how publishing and developers make their money in the first place.
That's the one thing I want to know. How much money did Sony actually earn from having this game published on Game Pass? It'd be millions.
Yeah, I don't know.
They'd have to cut a deal.
It'd be interesting to see where, and I guess getting our hands on the box and reading the fine print and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I've heard little rumblings that Sony's not actually, so they're developing it. So you'll see this PlayStation Studios logo and you'll see...
You're saying that they're not publishing or distributing.
But they're not publishing on Xbox.
That's weird.
The MLB is doing the publishing there.
Wait, actually, yeah, you could be correct because Reading the Xbox website, immediately went to the Xbox website afterwards once it was announced. Publisher noticed MLB, and I was like, huh, okay.
But PlayStation publishes it on PlayStation platforms. But
Sony Computer
the MLB is publishing it on Xbox.
Sony Computer Interactive has been listed as the publisher on other platforms, like other websites, except for the Xbox one. And I thought it was just a case of Xbox just saying, no, we don't want to put PlayStation there. Don't do that. Put
no,
MLB
they're happy to do that because they have said in there, thanks to PlayStation and Sony San Diego and blah blah blah. Like they've, the very friendly face of Xbox these days. They're happy to do that.
So you don't think,
MLB's publishing this thing.
So you don't think that there's even a semblance of a PlayStation developed title ever after this making it to, besides the MLB franchise?
Not unless Disney pipes up and says no, Spider-Man needs to come across. But at which point I'd say that Insomniac just doesn't make the game anymore.
We'll see. Anyway, we're going to move on. This one comes by way of Gamasutra. It doesn't actually have an author's name here, but Demon Souls.
I wrote it.
Somebody wrote it. Demon Souls remake director Gavin Moore has left Sony Interactive Japan studio. So Demon Souls remake director Gavin Moore.
That's Chris Kerr, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Demon Souls remake director Gavin Moore has left Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan studio. The news comes as Gravity Rush, Ape Escape, and The Last Guardian developer is wound down, with Sony choosing to absorb the studio into Astro's Playroom dev team Asobi. Quote, after 24 years at Sony and 18 of those in Japan, yesterday was my last day at Japan studio, and quote, wrote Moore on Tuesday on Twitter. Quote, I will miss the great creative spirit and camaraderie of the studio. That was a huge part of my life. Time to seek out new and exciting opportunities, end quote. As reported by VGC earlier this month and since confirmed by Sony, the Tokyo-based studio has been bleeding talent ahead of its closure, losing Bloodborne producer Teruyuki Toriyama, Silent Hill creator Kiichiro Toyama, and other figures. All right. This is another thing that I'm kind of at a loss at with Japan Studio. I realized they didn't really develop major, game-changing titles, if anything, industry-shifting titles as of late. But it's just a shame to see such a legendary studio within PlayStation be completely torn down, if anything. And like it says, it's basically bleeding developers into other studios within the PlayStation ecosphere, or ecosystem. But it's almost like, hey, you know what? We know that there's an abundance of talent within this bubble, but the bubble's now burst, and we have to let a lot of them go. It's just really confusing right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the whole thing doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. I'm sure that the plan is to kind of build Asobi up so that it does become kind of that same old entity.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's kind of the old husk is not what it used to be, but there's this nugget of something and we'll build it around that. So I understand kind of the logic of it. It still smacks of more Jim Ryan stupidity. But
yeah,
just this incompetent boss that's just blowing everything up. But
yeah,
I don't know, like, it's going to exist. It's just not what it was. And
well, it's not. It's going to exist as
and it's
a
just not
fragment.
And it's just not this focal point that it used to be that was important for Japanese development. It's what helped get so many cool developers working with PlayStation was Team Japan and the assistance, and kind of the fact that they weren't really focused on their own product so much more recently. So they were able to send their resources out to go help From Software on Demon Souls or Bloodborne, or go out and work with Gavin and the team on Puppeteer or whatever it happened to be. Like they were kind of the thing that facilitated XDev stuff.
Yeah.
And that just disappears at the moment while they build Asobi up to presumably try and assume that same sort of role again. But it's just, I don't know.
But Asobi...
I hope that in the 3 or 4 years that it might take for Asobi to really continue to grow and become maybe what they want it to be, they don't lose too many opportunities in the meantime.
See, I'm really confused also by the fact that they've just kind of shoved them over to Asobi. Obviously known for Astrobot, but the style of games that Japan Studio created almost don't fit the mold or the vision that Asobi have kind of disposed. It's really kind of a lack in terms of leadership. It kind of starts at the top. It's a Jim Ryan thing, I believe, and the mistake is there that right now that he's really letting Japan Studios' greatness slip through his fingers, because there are a lot of great developers who worked at that studio that he's letting go or losing.
Yeah.
I
understand to an extent any sort of logic that might say we just need to kind of condense a little bit within the Japan space, because we know where the Japanese market is leaning, and it's leaning towards mobile titles, not the console experience. There's very rare exceptions, and they are Dragon Quest and Monster Hunter, Final Fantasy, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
And anything that's on the Switch, but that is a portable handheld system,
which Sony are in no position to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another wrinkle, by the way. Like whatever their backwards compatibility thing is, how do they plan on getting PSP and PS Vita games running? But anyway, that's a whole subject. I'd understand it to an extent, simply because the Japanese market isn't what it is used to be, and it's changed and grown in different directions to basically the rest of the world in terms of kind of the core gaming sort of audience. But they've gone too hard.
Padge, an article that connects to this one is from PSU, or PlayStation Universe. This one is from Michael Haradens. Is that his? What?
Yeah, Haradens. It's just it's the contents of the article that I'm looking forward to.
Oh, great! Here we go. Who says Tokyo Jungle producer forms new studio Epicrasm following? So I think Epicrasm following Sony Japan departure. The article goes on. Former Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan Studio executive producer and external production director Masami Yamamoto has formed a new development studio following his departure from the company. Yamamoto-san, who worked on oddball title Tokyo Jungle, has established Epicrasm. I think that EPIGRA.
Oh yeah, it's the asm part that's just prompted a lot of chuckles.
Epicrasm. Epicrasm. I think that's how you say it. Epicrasm. It's the way it's spelled is weird.
I'll wait for him to say it himself.
And
chuckle hardly.
It wasn't an April Fool's joke either. Look at this, despite the unusual title. Oh my god. Speaking on Twitter, thanks to Gamatsu for translation, he commented, I apologize, quote, I apologize if this sounds like an April Fool's joke, but on March 31st, I established the company Epicrasm. I've had the privilege of living life through the things I love. So from now on, I would like to, quote, live with the people I love, end quote, as a driving principle. I'll continue to do my best in all areas, including game production, end quote. So that's cool. But again, it's one of those things now where it's a producer that leads on to making an independent studio, and my concern is that we're not looking at Hideo Kojima here. And
no. But you note the credits at the bottom of the article. So as well as Tokyo Jungle, Yamamoto's worked on Bloodborne, Soul Sacrifice, Freedom Wars. Like they're not Kojima style stuff, but there's pedigree there still. There's experience. Soul Sacrifice is a little bit, but the rest of them, really good titles at least. Again, they're not a Kojima. This person's not a Kojima. This kind of goes back to the same conversation we had about Jade Raymond recently, where just through the nature of her role, she's not the creative genius behind the thing. She's what helps realize these dreams and make them possible. And I think in this case, maybe Yamamoto's kind of in that design sort of Kojima sort of mold, but he's nowhere near the scale.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Fingers crossed that it works out for him, because instead of it being a Kojima situation, it more likely will unfold into a Keiji Inafune situation, where the bloke created Mega Man and the Mighty Number 9 was just a fucking ugh. So it's just I don't know.
Let's just hope it's more like Inafune, who went on to do Bloodstained.
My worry is that we're not getting any more knack. But anyway, moving on. This one,
our Lord and Savior,
comes by way of Liam Croft over at Push Square. who says Sony to continue investing in Dreams developed by Media Molecule. He goes on, when many PlayStation fans lacking a business degree believe that Media Molecule's Dreams should be built into the PS5 user experience to ensure more people get to play around it with it and thus generate some profit, it was always going to be the case that the complete opposite has been happening behind the scenes. As it turns out, Sony continues to invest in Little Big Planet creator Media Molecule to help it grow, putting the fears of a future shutdown from hardcore supporters to bed. Revealed in an interview with Kotaku, studio director Siobhan, I think that's how you say it, Siobhan Reddy, touched on...
Siobhan Reddy.
Siobhan, okay, thank you very much. Siobhan Reddy touched on how the studio is staffing up. Quote, we're on a big recruitment drive right now because to make the progress we want, we need programmers and we need designers. I've never seen Siobhan actually spelled like that, but anyway.
No, that's the default spelling.
Really?
Yeah, I know. It's just one of the, because I don't want to. I want to speak out of turn. I think it might be like an Irish name at its core or something like that, and
yeah,
their spelling is just fucked.
Well, there you go. Well, then again, German use that B, that letter B, but it's actually in English double S. There you go.
Yeah. So it's one of those weird English language quirks in this case. But
it goes on anyway. What it really excites me about all this is Sony is really behind what we're doing and are investing in the studio to grow, end quote. Reddy then goes on to explain how the developer's investment in talent is already producing results. A recent hire, Jen Simpkins, has been tasked with overseeing editorial content on the Media Molecule website, while engagement in Dreams is up across the board. Okay, so this story was also discussed by myself and Betson on the Dash Game podcast last week. And the reason I have some concerns about this title altogether and, them investing for its longevity in it. Look, it's great that they're continuing to. It's awesome that they're keeping Dreams alive. But my concern was essentially that Dreams was great when it launched. Like, absolutely a phenomenal platform for independent developers to go on and create titles and, really get invested
and schmucks like you and I.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those
total hacks.
But I believe that its honeymoon phase. Yeah, honeymoon phase is over. And it's been over for a while now. It really did it really had its chance, to be quite honest, because it launched February 2020, like 8 years ago, because time doesn't really exist anymore. But even having that chance within the pandemic, it really didn't flourish all that much.
No, I think the saving grace in the eyes of many was not the VR inclusion, which was cool though, admittedly, but was the idea, this kind of theory that was never substantiated in any way, that it would be kind of baked into the PS5 at launch in a similar sort of way that Astro was in the end, and that never happened.
No.
I think there's still an opportunity for them to do that, but that window of time is rapidly closing. You've got probably the first calendar year of this thing, and then of the PS5 being out there to execute on that. It's free to everyone on PS5. Go for it, because you've got the hardest of hardcore new adopters. There's not a massive catalogue of titles out at this point that you might get some people going in there. But after that, that's it. It's over. I still appreciate the fact that they are trying to go back in there and they're supporting the creators and that sort of thing. And they did do this with, Little Big Planet 1 and 2. They supported those games well after their perceived life was over.
Yeah.
Little Big Planet 1 was still getting support, even though Little Big Planet 2 was out there, because that's the way this studio is. But I hope that the majority of these hirings that are going on are based not around the life support potentially for Dreams, but okay, we're going to continue to just work on this in the background, but we need to get this next project going, and we need to get it out the door in the next 2 to 3 years. We can't take an entire console generation to launch a title that no one played in the end.
Yeah, and that's really what concerns me as well. Is like, yeah, fine, they're going to invest some funds into keeping this alive, but for how long? And knowing obviously Jim Ryan's track record, it's not. It could be tomorrow that he turns around, snaps his fingers, and says, "Get rid of it and put it over here."
There's an optics thing though, and Siobhan getting the award that she recently got does give them some extra time. I think
it elevates that
because now it does. I mean, it's not great to send someone like Gavin Moore, for example, out the door, and but it's a whole other thing to be like, we're going to shut down the studio for the person who just got acknowledged as being.
Oh yeah,
I think there's one of 11 people to have received a BAFTA. The first female in gaming space, I should say specifically, the first female. Like it'd be a horrible optics look for them. And I know that I'm sounding like a bit of a jerk because I'm talking about in a business optics lens, but
no, I believe you're correct.
They are a business at the end of the day. They're a business at the end of the day, and it's not a good look for them to kind of scrap the studio and that sort of thing off the back of Siobhan getting this award. So it's bought them time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as much as you look at it on the business side, there's also the good rational side, and I mean, as much as the games aren't selling, they're fantastic titles, really creative. They look good in the portfolio. So there's plenty of reasons in that respect to keep them. It's just they need to be knocking out titles at a faster clip than they are to just justify that.
Like what you're hearing today? Be sure to follow all Dash Gamer podcasts on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify by simply typing dashgamer.com into the search bar of your favorite podcast provider. And don't forget to check out our gaming, anime, and pop culture related news on dashgamer.com. Now back to the show.
The next one, we have one of two articles here that I'm going to read in one go. This one comes by way of Sammy Barker over at Push Square, who says Cyberpunk 2077 patch 1.2 runs much better on PS4 Pro, but there are sacrifices. Did you hear about the 44GB patch that came out last week for it?
No.
Absolutely abysmal. That's almost half the game.
I couldn't care less about this game until it comes natively to PS5, at which point maybe I'll consider going and playing it again because I won't have to pay for it.
I don't think I will. I
won't have to pay for it, so there's at least some curiosity that might kick in.
The article goes on, Cyberpunk 2077's big 1.2 patch, version 1.2 patch was billed as the big one by CD Projekt Red. And as we noted in our PlayStation 5 hands-on, it's unquestionably improved the experience. This must be the 44GB one they're talking about. But what about the PS4 Pro consoles? Well, a full analysis has been uploaded by Digital Foundry, and the bottom line is that it's much better. But there are caveats. The publication reports, while the frame rate certainly isn't perfect on Sony's supercharged last-gen console, it now sticks much closer to the target of 30 frames per second, even in areas of stress like marketplaces. The catch is that the Polish developer has turned asset streaming right down to achieve it, meaning that many objects and materials simply don't appear if you're moving quickly. It just frustrates. Anyway, the trade-off means that scenery details like chairs or advertising hoardings are hidden unless you stop and wait for them to load. Oh, that's essentially texture. That's lazy load texture popping.
Yeah.
I'm not even anyway. Depending
but
on, go on. No, go on.
I wonder if this is enough though for Sony, to say, okay, you can pop up on the store again.
No,
because I mean,
that is still a broken game.
No. Texture popping and those sort of things. I know we've kind of surmised it under that, and it's not going to be quite as simple as that. But all the concerns are around frame rate and the fact that the thing would just come to a screeching halt. And now, if it's not doing that, that might be enough for Sony to say, well, okay, you can come back on the store again.
Do they deserve to?
No, they don't deserve to, but ultimately there are benchmarks. And if they hit whatever those benchmarks are with Sony, then they're through. And I suspect, pop-in isn't necessarily one of those because we even see PlayStation titles have some pop-in issues from time to time.
They just showed, actually, I'm playing the Digital Foundry comparison right now that apparently they put up. And the PS4 Pro version now has the same problems as the PlayStation 4 base version had when you walk up to the club, and that mud-faced guard at the front door is completely just mud-faced again. That's weird.
I don't know.
I don't know. Look, I think, yeah, I know. Anyway, look, I'll read the second bit of this article, and
the bit that does matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
this one comes by way of Tom Ivan over at VGC, who says, The Witcher 3's next-gen update will be released in the second half of 2021. I know this one has you excited, Padge. CD Projekt Red has confirmed that The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt's next-gen update will be released in the second half of 2021. The news was announced on Tuesday as part of a wider company strategy update. Okay, fair enough. The next-gen edition of The Witcher 3 will be released as a standalone purchase for PC, Xbox Series X and S, and PlayStation 5, and as a free update for players who already own the game on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. Hey, that's you, Patch! The PS5 and Xbox Series X/X port is being developed externally by Saber Interactive, the studio behind The Witcher 3's Nintendo Switch port, which was acquired by THQ Nordic parent Embracer earlier this year. Speaking about the quote next gen end quote PC version in September 2020, CD Projekt's VP of Business Developmental Mikhail Nowakowski, thank you, Paul, told investors. The freaking names today, man. It would include improved visual quality and additional features. Quote, there will be a patch adding visual quality and a few extra features. And of course, we're not going to charge people for a patch. It's something that they're going to download and will upgrade their game, upgrade their experience, but we're not going to ask them for extra money, he said. Quote, if you have your game on PC, you'll just download an update, and that game will continue to cost what it currently does on the PC market. We consider it an upgrade and the currently existing game, end quote. That's awesome. See, look, that is fine. The caveat in this, though, developed externally by Saber Interactive. They are not using their in-house team for this.
No, I mean, Saber...
No. Let's not downplay. They're not using... They're not using CD Projekt Red to develop this.
But do you blame them, given that everything...
No!
Like, when it comes to Cyberpunk being on fire at the moment, like, you commit every single person to getting Cyberpunk
but
going.
CD Projekt have essentially outsourced, instead of using their own in-house development studio to work on a title that was worked on by CD Projekt Red initially to Saber.
But this is, keep in mind, and we've referenced the fact that they did the Nintendo Switch port. This is like they already had this relationship going before what had happened with Cyberpunk had happened.
Yeah.
So this is not necessarily some oh my god, like you make it someone else's problem. Like this is obviously already established.
What I'm saying is that I don't think they have faith.
Let's be real. No, I don't think it's an issue at all. I think because really what we're going to get on the PS5 and Xbox Series X is going to be the ultra settings PC version, save as .ps5.
So you think it's more of a port than anything?
Oh yeah, no, it's basically just a port of the like they'll
ultra
apply
settings.
Whatever updates they need to apply to the PC version, and then .ps5, .xsx.
That's usually what it is
done
these days. Yeah,
I know that's obviously not how the process works. But
there is implementation, but there is a
PC,
little bit of...
update whatever you need to update for PC, boom, to the consoles, out you go, which, they're just resources that internally they don't need to waste on something like that. And Saber has been doing a lot of this stuff for not just CD Projekt in the Switch port, but other platforms and other consoles and developers as well. Like they're kind of, as well as developing some of their own stuff, which is apparently still a little way out. They've proven themselves to be fairly proficient in this space for a while. I mean, The Witcher 3 on the Switch looks like shit, but the fact that it runs at all on that system is
like a PlayStation 1 game.
yeah, but it's an absolute miracle that you can play that game.
Well, it's been optimized and downscaled. It's been scaled down such a marginally that it plays. It looks like a PlayStation 1 game, but it performs well, surprisingly well.
Yeah, and so I think when all of a sudden you don't have that handicap, you're actually upgrading instead of downgrading. Like the thing's going to be perfect, but you just don't need to. You don't need to waste your own internal resources, especially when they've got everything they've got to contend with Cyberpunk.
Correct. Paige, let's move on. This one comes by way of Adam Bankhurst over at IGN, who says Ratchet & Clank PS4 to get a 60 frames per second upgrade or update, for PS5 in April 2021. There is an update that says that the update is now live, but the original story says 2016's Ratchet & Clank will be getting a new update in April 2021 that will make it playable in 60 frames per second on PS5. Insomniac Games announced the news on Twitter while also reminding fans that Ratchet & Clank is available for free for PS4 and PS5 owners right through to the end of March. It's already gone.
No longer.
Via its Play at Home initiative. Sony announced the return of its Play at Home initiative last month and shared that fans could expect 4 months of free offers for PlayStation games and entertainment. These free games are available for all, even those who don't or who do not subscribe to PlayStation Plus. Yeah, so this is really cool. Given the fact
I like they said it was an April update and then boom, March 31st. Like, yeah, just take it. Go, enjoy.
Given the fact that the game was free for an entire month to those who didn't even own a PlayStation, all you had to do was basically register on the web shop and claim it.
Redeem it.
And then, once you do actually own a PlayStation, you can download it and play it whenever. But the fact now that we're getting it at 60 frames per second, great. I love it because Ratchet & Clank was certainly one of my most favored titles on PlayStation 4. I adored it. The remake was substantially. It was just one of those. It was one of those games that I recognized as just marvelous in terms of.
Just go easy there. It's not a remake. It's a game. It's a game based on the film, based on the game.
No, it's not. It's the game remade from the PlayStation 2. Calm yourself down. So, yeah. It's a remake and it's done well. It's done really, really well. It's built from the ground up. Let's call it spade a spade. It's the Final Fantasy VII remake of Ratchet & Clank from PlayStation 2.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's narrative changes, and that's why I say it's based on the film, based on the game. But
go on, Paul. Give me your praises.
Yeah. I mean, the game's amazing. I went back to it the other day to have a crack at some of the hovercraft stuff, but post update.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not a frame rate guy, but I noticed that.
Oh yeah, yeah. The performance is astounding now. It looks great. So if you have Ratchet & Clank on PS4 or PS5, whatever, make sure you get the update because it's free, it's available now, and also it's awesome. Page, the next one comes by way of Joshua Robertson over at The Gamer, who says, "Rumor: The Last of Us TV show to start filming in July." He goes on, "It's been revealed that filming for HBO's eagerly anticipated The Last of Us TV show could start filming as early as July. This information was revealed via a listing found on the Directors Guild of Canada, which was then reported by Canadian news site CBC. The listing reveals that the filming for HBO's The Last of Us TV show is set to begin in Calgary on July 5th and finish on June 8th the following year. The same site mentions that there have been, quote, rumors of a massive production, end quote, coming to Calgary for a few months. It was announced a while ago that Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann and Chernobyl writer Craig Mazin would be working together to revisit Ellie and Joel's story in The Last of Us as a TV adaptation. In an interview with BBC Radio 5, Mazin talked about a potential plot claiming that the show will expand upon the original story. He also claims that the TV adaptation may deviate from what people expect, but the show will still follow the events of the first game. Of course, it was announced in February this year that Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey would be playing the parts of Joel and Ellie, respectively. Yeah, so, okay. There's a little bit of a disparity or an argument in stories here that from what I've personally heard to what is being told now. And when initially announced, The Last of Us TV show was said to not essentially be a copy-paste of the script from the game. They're not necessarily saying that here, but what they are saying is a good chunk of it will be a retelling of the game with minor touch-ups, essentially, that change the story a bit. For me, I hate when they do this because essentially, and especially when you have people like Neil Druckmann who are pretty much hands-on in this project right now, but are easily influenced or told, hey, look, we don't really need you here, you can go, because we own the license now to produce and distribute this show. My worry is, are they gonna stuff this up?
No, see, I read into that, like, yeah, sure, obviously it's going to be retelling the core game, but that is how it was pitched at the beginning.
They pitched Uncharted, the movie, like that too.
No, I mean, that was pitched like it's, it's
an origin story. And that was when it was pitched.
Oh, yeah, but no, but as in, like, what we know this Uncharted movie to be is kind of meant to be some origin story. It's not retelling any of the individual games. This is a retelling in many respects.
Right.
But what I like about it is this... like the expanding on the original story. And that's where I think like some of those periphery characters that we only kind of see for different moments from the original. Presumably, we're going to get greater chunks of time to explore their origins and learn more about them and that sort of stuff. And we know what's ultimately going to happen, but we get to learn more about what was his name. We discovered kind of very end just before we left that he was gay. He helped us get the car going. Remember, we were pushing it down the
Bill.
hill. Bill, yeah. We're presumably going to learn a lot more about Bill and his stories, and other people, like the ones we see, like through the stories that we find around the world. And I'm trying to avoid other characters that kind of inject themselves into the story and what happens with them. But those sort of characters are going to get fleshed out substantially, I think, and I'm looking forward to.
I hope.
But there is a degree of, I think, set our expectations. If you've played the game, you know how the story is going to go.
Look, if they're going to do a retelling, keep it faithful. Yeah. Don't stuff around with the narrative. The narrative itself was perfect.
No, that's where I think, like, with this whole expanded, let's flesh out those characters. We're not gonna change the story. We're still gonna have probably the giraffe sequence. We're probably still gonna have we're gonna have. I think it's guaranteed we'll have what happens with Sarah at the beginning. All those sorts of things, like all those key moments, they're not changing. I think even the driving into the city and oh my god, there's the guy there, we should help him. No, I've done that before. All of that's going to happen as well. It's going to be all the stuff on the periphery that we're going to get more of, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Imperative
sequences and scenarios, set pieces that really need to be expanded on to understand more of Joel and Ellie's story. I will appreciate that. But if they deviate from the script completely and turn around and start coming up with original, zany story elements that, we should appreciate because this is the other side of Ellie that you haven't seen before. No, don't do that shit.
No, and some of the extra stuff will be left behind. Left Behind will be in there.
Oh, Left Behind will probably... I don't see Left Behind being as impactful towards it as one would think. I think that it will have its place in maybe some flashbacks or something, but I don't think it's going to be such an important part of the story.
It probably depends on how many, I guess, episodes there are in a season. If we're talking, 8 to 10, for example, then there's probably, I reckon there could be like, your episode, 3 to 4, for example, where probably be in the back half, maybe episode 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that vicinity where you're flashing back to that whole that side story, that whole game, the Left Behind game is an episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a dedicated standalone episode where, at first you're like, what the hell? Ellie's way younger. What's going on here? And then for anyone who's, played the game, you go, oh, it's Left Behind. For anyone who hasn't, they'll soon come to learn that this whole episode is a flashback explaining something that happened in Ellie's childhood.
Yeah.
Earlier childhood.
We'll definitely see what happens when it actually comes out. It'll probably be a 2022 release, if anything. Padge, the final story of the night comes by way of Sammy Barker over at Push Square, who says Remedy reportedly pointing flashlight at Alan Wake 2. Now, I saw this, but I thought it may have been an April Fool's story. So, I don't know. But anyway, because this was reported on Saturday, so who knows? Remedy is reportedly working on a sequel to cult hit Alan Wake. According to talkative quote industry insider Jeff Grubb. Look, something's gone wrong with this guy.
You need to explain why you've got issues with Jeff Grubb.
Okay, I'll tell you in a bit. Who, to be fair to him, has largely flawless track. No, he doesn't have no. Immediately, I can argue this.
Hang on, let's get to the story and then you can explain that.
Has a largely flawless track record thus far. He's, quote, heard the title is being produced as part of a publishing deal that the Finnish developer signed with Epic Games last year. It makes sense the developer reacquired the rights to the franchise with Microsoft in 2019 and then weaved Control's narrative around the Xbox 360 title. Many are still waiting for Alan Wake to be ported to PlayStation, which will surely happen at some point, especially if this sequel comes to PlayStation 5, which we suspect it will. It goes on, of course, this all does remain speculation until officially confirmed. Grubb's sources have been reliable since he adopted the role of online snoopster, but it's always...
Great word.
It's always possible that plans may have changed. Okay, so let me now clarify my stance on Jeff. Jeff's great. He has become a go-to guy apart from Schreier. And because Schreier's just gone off the deep end now. Whereas Jeff has kind of maintained this respectable position within the industry.
He's a bit of a larrikin. I quite enjoy that too.
Who, Jeff?
On that side of it, yeah.
Here is my issue. And there are a couple that I'll state on the pod, then there will be a couple that I'll state to you afterwards. But on the pod...
Way to leave all the listeners hanging.
I have to. But on the pod, this is what I will say. My issue right now is that he outputs a lot of rumors that essentially are ruinous to the industry. That could potentially lead to, cancellations and everything else. And I mainly point the finger at the Elden Ring leak that happened. Because he was a big part of the Xbox Inside rumor that was happening in March, that never transpired. They never had one. And even Aaron Greenberg came out and said, no, Jeff, it's not happening. And he was very adamant about it. He was like, oh, he's bullshitting. And it's like, no, Jeff, seriously, that's not happening. So we know that there was an event, closed doors, because Jason Schreier confirmed that there was a closed door event for reporters to see the Elden Ring trailer. Jeff was adamant.
Not through the lens of someone's phone.
Exactly. Through somebody's freaking Nokia 3210, you mean? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
potato phone. But the fact that it never transpired, that was strike one for me. There are multiple other things that has come to light in terms of what he's put out there, that he's also told third parties. So he's a source, and third parties have got information from that have published, but then have retracted almost immediately. There was an example within the last 24 hours. I'm not going to name names or drop them or anything like that, because really they don't need the attention or anything. But there have been a few things such as PlayStation. So this goes back to the MLB thing. PlayStation have basically made an agreement with Xbox that Xbox would return the favor somehow. That is not happening. There won't be favor for favor here. This is essentially what we've discussed. MLB are basically forcing PlayStation's hand. That's another thing that kind of came to light. And there are a couple of other issues that I've kind of had with Jeff. But in regards to this, I don't know. Alan Wake 2 is kind of like being up in the air for a long, long time. And the fact that the only thing I could see, the only way I could see it happening is due to the fact that Control has been such a great success for Remedy, and its tie-in with Alan Wake.
And Epic have more money than God.
Correct. That it could see the light of day. But again, it's all speculation.
Well, I mean, the part of it that they're working together, Epic and Remedy, that's already official. We know that.
Yeah.
Everything else, is 100% speculation. But I'd buy into it. They know the demand. They actively teased it with Control, the DLC specifically. They know what people want.
Yeah.
They've now found a publisher who, unlike 505, has all the money to help facilitate it with no fuss whatsoever. Like, they could get front load payment and go, okay, here we go, 5 years, go make Alan Wake 2. We don't even care if it's successful or not, because we can just make this happen.
This is one of the more believable rumors, to be honest.
Yeah. I buy into it.
Yeah, same. I wouldn't.
It's been going for far too long, and we know Sam Lake has spoken about in the past that he understands the demand from the audience. He wants to do it himself. It's just not been the right combination of events haven't transpired, and this might be that combination of events. So
I worry. Look, see, here's the thing about Jeff. I worry that he's got a great reputation. I like listening to him on certain podcasts and everything else. Is actually much more enjoyable than Jason Schreier as even just a person, to be honest. But the thing is, I fear that because he's kind of exposed himself a few times in terms of playing his hand out there and saying, "Check it out, guys! I got this news. Feed off me. I'm Jeff Grubb." It's now gotten to the point where publishers and developers are maybe misleading the guy, and he's outputting fake news in a way.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, that it would make sense.
Yeah, so you got to remember that sometimes these media
that's where you just got to hope, though, that someone such as himself, who's in the position that he's in, has some sort of journalistic back. I don't know.
He's
his
not a Greg
actual
Miller.
background.
He's not a Greg Miller. He's not, he's somebody from IGN or anything. He is reputable.
I'd like to imagine with the number of things he's gotten right that he's at least learnt
But
somewhere
he's not a
along
Greg.
the road.
He's not a Ryan McCaffrey, dude. Like it's one of those
No,
things where
I agree, but that he's somehow learnt, at some point learnt the whole journalistic rule, which is, make sure you get it confirmed by 2 or 3 different sources.
and keep your mouth shut. Until then.
And I mean, there's not so much of the keeping the mouth shut going on here, of course. But, but the actual, source verification stuff, that I'd like to hope that he's still vetting those sort of things.
I don't
and that's
know
why,
if he is.
the
That's
majority of the time, that's why the majority of the time when things do come out, it turns out he's been pretty well on the money. If he's missing 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, you take that any day of the week, because the 2 or 3 out of 10, some of which will be something extra, like something happened after that's meant that the Xbox event got cancelled or our game got scrubbed or whatever the case happens to be, simply not because Jeff reported it, but because life happened. Shit happens.
So,
And it's probably then one out of those 3 which are him getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Just straight out wrong.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just think that it could be one of those things right now where he's really, really building up that reputation where Schreier was in the industry and is now kind of feeding off that reputation and trying to double down on it.
PlayStation.
All right, Padge, it's time for the PlayStation pick this week. And my pick is a game that I replayed recently or revisited recently. I have an article up right now on Dash Gamer that you can go check out. Infamous Second Son for the PlayStation 4. Now, the reason I went back to Infamous Second Son was mainly due to the fact that I do this every generation. When there's new hardware that's out, I always like to play the game of comparison and go back to the beginning of the previous gen to kind of see how things stack up to now, to current day, to modern day.
Yep.
Boy. Was this one of those titles that I kind of now perceive as timeless? And the reason I say that is because it's such a gorgeous game still. Like, this game could easily be given adaptive trigger updates and haptic feedback in an update, whatever, and they could easily name it a remaster and it's done. The game itself is still as compelling as it was when it first launched. I've forgotten a majority of events that happened within Infamous Second Son. I do remember the narrative and how it unfolds and everything else, but I really had forgotten. It's been a while. It's been maybe about 5 years since I played it, but I've forgotten most of it. And this is also how I got acquainted with, such prolific voice actors within the industry, such as Troy Baker, Travis Willingham, and Laura Bailey. Obviously, Laura Bailey and Travis. I had the opportunity of interviewing them on this game, around the time of the release of this game, which was really cool. But to go back and revisit it, because there was a mention of it on Twitter last week that had been their 7-year anniversary from PlayStation.
Yep.
And I was like, 7 years, god damn. And this was a launch window title. It was supposed to come out right on launch. It got a bit of a delay and got pushed forward to March the following year. But man, to go back to a title that was released in March 2014 in 2021, and to see that it still stacks up it's phenomenal in its own right, because you can't go back to you could not go back to the beginning of the PlayStation 3 era and then go to PlayStation 4's beginning and say, oh, well, these
Resistance.
are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Resistance, as much as I love it, Resistance visually doesn't stack up.
No.
Gameplay wise, it doesn't stack up.
See, and that was
Quite
the
either.
thing too. There was an argument to be made at the end of the PlayStation 3's life cycle, especially with The Last of Us being so close to the end there.
Yeah.
That there wasn't much of a generational leap between PlayStation 3 and 4 at the time. That I can understand, because at the time, The Last of Us was really pushing the PlayStation 3's hardware and really exposing what the PlayStation 3 was capable of doing without it, just dying in the ass, really. But the Infamous Second Son, playing it on PlayStation 5 this week was really something special. And I noticed a few things about playing the game on PlayStation 5. The loading times were faster. The game played smooth. And I know that's an update that's just come out recently for Infamous Second Son, where the game plays 60 frames per second now. But for it to perform just as great as a PlayStation 5 title does nowadays, that is a testament to Sucker Punch and the amount, the heart that goes into or went into Infamous Second Son. It takes a team, a cream of the crop development team, to really have a title that can stand the test of time to be played on future generation hardware and still maintain that level of respect for its magnificence, essentially.
Yep. I mean,
yeah, go on.
I love Second Son. It's not the best in the franchise, but I love Second Son.
Oh, look, it isn't. I know that. Infamous 2, for me personally, is the best. Yeah. But Second Son, see, there was a difference between 2 and Second Son. I believe that, but first of all, I'll pull this up because this is actually a pre-release PlayStation 4 Game Informer Australia issue that I actually bought when I pre-ordered my PlayStation 4, that featured Dave Milner writing about Infamous Second Son in here, which was really cool. So I pulled that out, do a little bit of homework while I was writing the article. But it was also it's also for the fact that Infamous 1 and 2 were a little more on the comic book side of aesthetics than anything. They really pushed more of a fantasy-esque kind of design than anything else. It was more of like a cartoon. Where the leap between Infamous 2 to Second Son, there was really that realistic approach that kicks in. Because you have the first sons in Infamous, is it 1? Yeah, 1. And then the Numerai, in Numerai you have the, I can't remember what they're called in Numerai. Anyway, you have your enemies in Numerai in the second one, but the way that they're portrayed, the way that they're perceived, they're a little more of the comic book-like antagonists. They're not really...
it's the goons. Exactly.
Where in Second Son, it really does look like reality. It's a reality base, but it's connected within lore. And there's that juxtaposition there where it just kind of doesn't make sense in a way, because you're coming from Empire City, a fictional representation of New York, to Seattle.
Yeah.
So there is that juxtaposition there that I believe Sony kind of were like, hey, we know you're capable of doing it. Can you make the game a little more realistic for its next release so that we can push boundaries for PlayStation 4 and show its capabilities?
I mean, I remember how Nate Fox presented it the first time.
Yeah,
I think it was E3 or maybe the PlayStation thing. Like he spoke about all those things in terms of the dark gritty thing, and like, he went for that more foreboding sort of feel. Like they did tonally kind of change things up in that respect.
Yeah. So, man. And after finishing that up, I went straight into Infamous First Light, which was a follow-up title.
Fetch.
And I played as Fetch, who's portrayed by Laura Bailey, and I got my platinum. So that's why I had a drink. But Infamous Second Son, definitely one of my favorites of all time, and definitely my PlayStation pick for this week. All right, Padgett, it's time for the PlayStation operation. What have you got for me?
Leaning into the news that we discussed earlier in this episode about the PS3, the PSP, and the Vita, it was revealed a little while ago, a month or so roughly now, that there was a patent that Sony had submitted that was basically meant to allow old games to ping trophies. Now, I'm not, as much as I'm a trophy guy, and I'd love to go and play some of these old PS1 games or whatever with trophies in them. Given the news that we've just been experienced, can you fucking get this patent up and running and do it fucking now?
Oh my
Please,
God.
for the love of God. No, because what that means is the backwards compatibility component.
Oh, I understand
that's what I'm focusing on. Yes, there's a double win there that I can go and play.
I'd say that there's a double standard more than a double win.
Double standard?
Yeah. Because they've pulled off all the digital titles from their storefronts, right?
Yeah.
For trophies.
Oh no! So I'm connecting the things. So like the fact that we get the trophy thing means that backwards compatibility happens.
Okay.
So I want them to execute on that pattern, because then I know I'm getting what I want as well, which is the backwards compatibility component.
Right.
There's a 2-for-1 here that I'm looking for. Otherwise, it's as simple as me saying, "Give me fucking backwards compatibility, damn it!"
Yeah.
And that lasts about 30 seconds.
What if they charge you for this? You have to buy titles all over again.
I mean, well, Nintendo's done it for
That's what I mean.
years.
That's a Nintendo strategy.
And PlayStation's done it with the PS2 to PS4 thing in the past as well.
Right.
And their pricing wasn't outrageous, so I could kind of cop it a little bit. Certainly the PS1, PS2, I could really, okay, sure, why not? PS3 would irk me, but I can't even blame Jim Ryan for that one. That was just the cell architecture thing being a horrible, horrible decision.
Yeah.
The PS3 is what's fucked all of this up for everyone, really. But no, they need to resolve the backwards compatibility thing. But this pattern is kind of the little canary in the coal mine that maybe suggests that we are in fact close. I'd like to think that, okay, your purchases, the reason why the store is gone is because we don't want you to necessarily buy them there, because we're going to later announce that you can buy, you can now buy them here, and they've all got this support baked into them. Well, not every game, because not every developer is necessarily going to go out and add trophies into their old titles, but we've gone and spoken to X, Y, and Z, and we've gotten trophies for all the Final Fantasies. We've gotten trophies for all this. We've got trophies in the most important title, Shame on Cricket 99. All of that sort of stuff. Like you can go.
That is not happening. But anyway,
no, of course not. I'm throwing that out there because Shame on Cricket 99 is the GOAT. But like these titles, whether they're PS1, 2, or 3, will be accessible. PSP presumably also works in that same thing because it doesn't have any unique controller input that will cause any problems there. You can play that with your DualSense.
Yeah.
The Vita is the big issue because of the back touch. But
that's a whole lot of wishful thinking, Padge.
I just think like the pattern is something they're going to execute on. And that by doing that means we're getting our backwards compatibility, so fucking do it.
Hold on. There's no guarantee. This is assuming based off this patent that they've registered.
Of course. No, there's no guarantees. I'm saying execute on it.
They would like to pursue it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also going to take a lot of work and I believe a lot of years before we even see it.
I'll cop it. I'll wait. Just give me an opportunity to go play Resistance Fall of Man with trophies. It'd be great.
Give it to him, damn it. All right, Padge, it is time for the drop. What have we got this week?
Things are slowly starting to pick up a little bit. So, I mean, the day we record, Oddworld Soulstorm has gone live on PlayStation Plus for PS5 owners. PS4, You'll need to go buy it, but it's available PS4 and PS5 April 6th.
Yep.
Star Wars Republic Commando is live PS4.
Yep.
Lost Words Beyond the Page, April 6th.
Correct.
April 8 is a game that is currently on my phone through the Apple Arcade, Cozy Grove. I've heard a few things about it. I haven't actually had a chance to start it myself. I didn't realise it was coming to consoles this week, so I might just wait and pick it up on a console instead.
Right, yeah.
And then Saga Frontier Remastered on April 15th. So it's still not massive, but we are inching towards some bigger titles slowly. The next time we record one of these, we're going to be talking about, MLB, but we're also going to be talking about Returnal. And then we've got Deathloop the following month. Then we've got Ratchet, and the things are just starting to snowball a little bit. So we're getting there.
When's Returnal?
April 30.
Okay. It won't be next time we talk. It won't be next time we're on. We will talk about it, but I'm saying in terms of us having.
No, when we record 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about that game coming out.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So in the drop. So some cool titles on the way. I'm sure there's much more that could just get stealth dropped. Who knows?
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Guys, if you didn't know, this has been Operation PlayStation, Dashgamer.com's dedicated PlayStation podcast, where we dive deep and dirty and discover what the latest and greatest PlayStation have to offer, including everything that's coming out in 2021. You can follow Mr. Paul James on Twitter at Paul James Games. You can follow myself on Twitter at Dashgamer. Don't forget to follow the show over on Anchor, iTunes, and Spotify. Give us those cheeky 5-star ratings. They surely help us out. And also catch the VOD over on Dashgamer.com and on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that bell, give us a like, leave us a follow. Surely helps us out. Leave a comment, I should say. That helps us out. Padge, another awesome episode.
Were you doing your Shaq impression there with the cat?
That's right, it's coming. You know why I like this? I'm going to be honest with you for a second here. Oddworld Soulstorm is out. Yeah. Lorne Lanning is an asshole, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued enough that I'm going to be playing it tonight.
I've seen some interesting tweets over the day, namely from Kieran Verbuge, who's been talking about some performance issues on day one. So
why am I not surprised?
I can't say that I've encountered performance issues with things. It's either the game's been to your taste or it hasn't up to this point. So I'm concerned that maybe the rushing it out for PlayStation Plus has meant that maybe there's a week or two of stuff that they didn't get done that they really ought to have.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, but that's a constraint that then comes with PlayStation saying this is your date for PlayStation Plus. So
there is an issue with the game. That's why it's landing on PlayStation Plus patch. I'm not going to.
We'll see.
Anyway, guys, we'll talk about it next time. But until then, this operation is complete.
DashGamer.com